students and people in society are generally quite good at learning rules. But I think on top of the rules, or the rules on their own aren't good enough. What we have to get to is, once we know the rules, to overlay onto that a conversation about real things. And what if this, what if that? And do you know that this may be an ethical issue? Do you know? And almost imagine these scenarios, imagine ourselves in these things. Like, geez, man, if I was offered 100,000 Rand, 1 million, 10 million Rand for something, how would I respond to that? And sometimes just to say, guys, I'm going to be honest with you, I'd probably take the 10 million and then and reflect on that. Yeah. And what does that say about us?
Afshin everyone, and welcome to the Economites, where we have candid conversations on critical issues. My name is Nico Mgiba, and today's episode is quite special, not only because of the topic of conversation, but more so because of today's guest. Today I'll be speaking to Gareth Olivier, who is the co-founder and PGDA program head of CA Connect. Gareth has an honours degree in finance and financial accounting. He also has a master's degree, which he achieved with distinction. After varsity, he went on to PwC to complete his articles back in 2009. Shortly after that, he founded CA Connect in 2010. Gareth also came runner-up in SAICA's Top 35 under 35 in 2014. Today I'll be speaking to Gareth about education more broadly, then zooming into the education of chartered accountants. We'll also speak about entrepreneurship and his journey. Do enjoy. So Gareth, let's jump straight into it. You started CA Connect. Before you tell us a little bit more about CA Connect, just take us into your shoes a little bit. You identified a problem and you said that CA Connect is the perfect vehicle to drive home a solution to that problem. Can you just let us know what you were thinking when starting CA Connect?
Thanks, Nico. I mean, that's where I guess good businesses start, I guess, from a need and filling a real niche. And me and my three business partners, we started CA Connect straight out of articles. So we were kind of CAs, but also entrepreneurial, kind of wanting to not go the corporate route, I guess you'd say. And it was just, we had a passion for education. We loved it. We'd done academic traineeship. We tutored throughout varsity. And it was pretty clear to us kind of on that journey of education that general CA education was great in the contact space. So, the guys who go to the UNISA, WITS, UJ, Stellenbosch, all almost the contact universities. But it was super tough from the perspective of students who were kind of working, studying on a distance basis, and the system just didn't seem set up and catered to them. So I think we embarked on, probably, I guess, looking back in 2010 when we started CA Connected, a very naive journey to just systematically improve CA education for students who didn't have the luxury of studying on a full-time basis. But that was, I suppose, that's where all great journeys start. They're a little bit naive, a little bit not knowing what you're getting yourself into, but ambitious. And to be honest, our goal hasn't changed from there. We fundamentally want to help students that are working, that desperately want to be CAs, that are committed to it, and are passionate about it, but they don't necessarily have the systematic support. And I suppose our belief would be that if students are willing to put the time and the effort and the passion and the blood, sweat and tears into this thing, then the system should support them. And from what we could see in 2010, the system just simply didn't support them, and we thought that was not okay. And so we embarked on the journey in 2010 to just say, how can we really improve the journey for these guys? And that's kind of where CA Connect started.
No, I heard you, Gareth. I heard you, and I just wanted to just follow up question on that, and that is to talk about the CA, the SAICA accreditation, because in order for CA Connect to offer the solutions that it does offer, you needed to be accredited by SAICA. Now, I've heard that getting that accreditation is quite difficult. Was it also difficult for you guys? Did they ask you guys to jump through, get it, or was it easy? What was your experience?
Yeah, so SAICA accreditation is a kind of a beast on its own. Where we started in 2010 is we identified the need at a UNISA level, and so we started off in 2010 and 2011 with a UNISA support program, and we basically provided lectures and tutorials and just did all the support around the UNISA CTA. I think what was difficult for us around that is that you can assist students on the UNISA program, but I think there's definitely almost a it's two different systems in a lot of ways. Even if you're lecturing and tutoring towards a UNISA program, the students are still going to look towards UNISA because they're the ones doing the syllabus, they're the ones offering the test, and so there's still kind of the students saying, okay, this is awesome help, but actually UNISA is the one that we're working kind of against or towards. And literally 6 months into 2010, when we started this thing, we said to SAICA, listen, SAICA, we need to get our own accreditation. And I think SAICA laughed at us again because it was so naive and ambitious. But we knew that that's what we had to do. We had to almost house the education all within one umbrella. It wasn't useful to have kind of a teaching umbrella and almost a setting and an assessment umbrella. It needed to be all one and the same. We needed to set the syllabus. We needed to design the test. We needed to develop the education, provide the students support. Everything around the educational process needed to be under one umbrella. And that was kind of our message to SAICA. So as I said, we went to them in I think 6 months into 2010. They laughed at us and they said, well, theoretically it can be done, but we're pretty sure you guys can't do it. And that's where the journey began. And we I think in 2010 we went to UWC. We worked on their program a lot. I think their program was struggling a bit from an accreditation point of view. So we taught on their program. We set the assessments on their program, and we basically ran their CTA in 2011 and 2012. And there we kind of almost broke this chicken and egg, where we showed and demonstrated to SAICA that we could run the entire program by doing that. So that was a really critical part of our program because it almost demonstrated that we could perform the academic leadership needed for the program. And I know we'll get into the details of all this, but I'll kind of give you the long story short, and then we'll dive into it further later. We then kind of knew that, well, the UWC program, it wasn't where we wanted to be housed because remember, our ultimate objective was still to assist students who were studying on a part-time basis, who were working at the same time, kind of all that other stuff. Yeah, part-time. It wasn't beneficial for us to be at UWC because that just simply wasn't our vision. It was useful in terms of breaking the chicken and egg from a SAICA accreditation point of view, but it wasn't helping us achieve our vision. We looked to Monash. What was cool about Monash at the time, I think that was around 2013, was that they had their undergrad SAICA accredited, but they didn't have their CTA accredited. So we went to them, we partnered with them, and through them, we kind of took the next step forward. And I'll tell you why it was the next step, because there we didn't get to our full objective, but we almost got to a halfway house where, I mean, Monash is a contact institution, or a residential university, I suppose, no different to a UCT, a UJ, a Stellenbosch, a UP, any of those varsties. It's not a distance institution, but we almost got to a halfway house with Monash for the 5 years that we ran their CTA, where we recorded our lectures, we ran evening tutorials, and for the students in Joburg who were able to attend Monash, we partly moved the CTA into that kind of evening space for the students who were doing that. So as I said, it wasn't perfect because it was still restricted to students in Joburg. It wasn't proper accessible education because we were still sitting there giving, I don't know, a 3-hour lecture, recording a 3-hour lecture, put it online, which is not proper online education as I'd see it. I'll go a little bit later into kind of proper online education and what it is. But we were taking the education to the students with Monash. Sorry, and I probably got a little bit off track here because you were speaking about the SAICA accreditation, Nico. And I suppose that's where the SAICA accreditation is super tough because you literally, what SAICA uses, the terminology is academic leadership. And you need to really demonstrate that entire process. And I think a big part of that, almost breaking that chicken and egg, because it's one thing to run a UNISA support program, but it's another thing to run an entire process. And through UWC, I think we developed strategic partnerships with UCT. I think a lot of the founders, we lectured at UCT, so we had good relationships with UCT. We had good relationships. We built relationships at SAICA. People got to know us. We had almost advisory boards. There was a process, I suppose, of building credibility towards ultimately getting that SAICA accreditation, because it's a massive process. And on top of it, I've written documents that are, I don't know, like 150, 200-page documents just of how the education process works and almost to satisfy additionally the boards at SAICA. And so it's a massive process, both of documentation, but also, I suppose, of building credibility in the industry. but in our opinion, I suppose this was necessary. I mean, remember, our core objective was in a lot of ways to change CA education systematically, to say that we fundamentally provide a solution for students who are not able to study on a full-time basis, and to really give them wraparound support for that. And we'll get into almost like the Millpark side of things, but it was almost a stepwise progression, because as I say, we started in 2010, and we'll kind of build the story, I guess, up to 2020 where we are now. But it was almost this identifying this need in 2010 and dogmatically sticking to this thing for year after year after year, and slowly but surely moving towards that. And we'll get to it later. But I think in 2019, towards the end, we actually achieved almost step one of what we started in 2010. So it really is a slow, steady progression up to where we think we needed to be to change that CA education.
Gareth, I like what you said when you said that you've written many papers about education. And I'd also like this conversation to be based on your view on South Africa's education system. You see, the Economites, one of the things that it does, or in fact, the primary thing that it's trying to do is trying to teach people about how the economy works. And we thought, in fact, it's the truth, that education is the fundamental base of any good and functioning economy. Now, when you look at South Africa's the education system, when you see it, does it make you happy, or does it say, no, we need to improve this and this and this and this? Are you happy as it is right now, or do you think that we still have a long way to go?
Yeah, it's a tough question, because I think in areas it's excellent, and in areas it leaves a lot to be desired. I think in the specific niche that we looked at, which was the guys working on a full-time basis and kind of studying part-time, it definitely wasn't where it needed to be. I think what worries me about because all these problems, I suppose, Nico, I like the way you think almost on an economic basis. We've got to look at big problems. We need to look at systematically. We can't just, there's always going to be, if you find a niche, there's always going to be stuff that's great in a niche and stuff that's really bad in a niche, and almost different pockets within an economy that are almost symptomatically good and symptomatically bad. But that's not really reflective of the system. We need to look at the overall system, and does the system set education up for success? I mean, that's presumably, if we can do education well, we need the system to set education up for success. Currently in the education system, I see a lot of red tape. I see a lot of, I suppose, I don't know, almost irrelevant questions that are asked. Because, I mean, one of the biggest hurdles for education is accreditation. Certainly at a university level, the CHE governs the accreditation. No one can offer university qualifications, undergrad or postgrad, unless they have these. And that was a huge thing. I think you rightly asked about psycho accreditation and kind of the barriers to entry there. That creates a huge hurdle, that accreditation. And psycho accreditation, just to kind of take a minor tangent quickly, is something that sits on top of the government accreditation. So for us to get psycho accreditation, it's not enough just to get psycho accreditation. We have to get government accreditation, CHE. In this case, the Council on Higher Education first needs to accredit a program, and then psycho kind of caps the thing on top. So it's almost two accreditations, one from the government and one from psycho. And I guess going back to the question, the difficult thing is there's a massive amount of red tape in that program. For example, I'll give you one thing: to get accreditation for a program, the process is probably 18 months at the shortest.
18 months,
Probably, but that's at the shortest, Probably 3 years as a general expectation. So, for example, when we got our PGDA accredited, we were lucky in that it was, and this is by the CHE, we were lucky that we pushed it through the system in 18 months. We're currently submitting a BCom that we are expecting to get through in between 2 and 3 years. And there's interesting things involved in that, especially because CA Connect, we also tried to get our own accreditation. The reason we couldn't do that is, as a small company, we didn't own buildings, and you can imagine, I mean, you've got to own buildings, you've got to have lecture venues, and fair enough, that's a fair requirement with the CHE.
It is.
You obviously don't want fly-by-nights. So to the extent
exactly
are legitimate. But I mean, to do this though, between when you submit your program for accreditation, you need to have a building that you either own or lease standing vacant for that entire period that you're submitting the accreditation. So if you look at that 18 month to 3 year period, you're basically looking at having to own a building for 3 years unoccupied. You can potentially sublease it, but there's significant barriers like that for, as a small institution, CA Connect, we started with 4 people. There's no ways we were going to
lease a building,
those buildings, and have them stand empty for 3 years. So there's those kinds of things that I guess are frustrating. To an extent, as I say, you can understand why they exist. But also to an extent, I guess what worries me the most is that you've got potentially excellent educational providers who just not getting through the red tape. And I wonder sometimes if that red tape serves the purpose that it does. And of course, you've got to stop the fly-by-night. So having a building is a good way to stop a fly-by-night. I mean, you've got lots of educational stories where people kind of grab students' money and they run off with the money and don't provide the course. So that you must stop. But I also wonder on the other side, how many institutions that could provide great education just get stopped at the door because they can't even get that. So I guess that's where, if we come back to your question of like systematically, are we setting education up for success? I guess I wonder if there's a way we can do it better. And there's some really interesting examples going on in the market. There's a guy like Seth Godin. He's got what he calls his alt MBA, an alternative MBA. And what he says in the alt MBA is not accredited. It's actually very expensive. You don't get a certificate at the end. And he's trying to break all the stereotypes with education to say, guys, education is about the process. Education is the things that we think about and the things that we change and the things that we learn along a process. Not getting a flippant certificate at the end, not writing an exam, not getting marks. I mean, that might be a symptom or indicator of education. But I mean, let's be honest about this. If you're getting a good education, what it's doing to you is it's helping you think better. It's helping you perform your role better in your job. But I mean, I don't know whether you get 49% or 51% in a test. That's not particularly indicative of great education. And those are the types of things that I think we need to kind of look at closely, because there are definitely better ways of doing these things. And there's definitely better ways for kind of setting up great educational providers, setting them up for success. I think that those are the types of things I think we need to unlock if we to set South African education up for success.
Sure. And you see, Gareth, when you have these conversations with anyone, they always point out a key problem being skill shortage. And that's when people like you and your firm and your partners can come in with a solution. And with the skills shortage, you guys aim to produce a CA, right? A potential CA who will do great things, who can adapt to the future, who can use technology and all of that good stuff. But when you look at it, when you look at the current climate, particularly in South Africa, the economic climate, we see many corporate scandals. I'm not going to mention their names, but we know them. And behind those scandals, you always see a signature of someone with those initials, CASAs. And it goes on to say that the public is slowly but surely losing its trust on CAs. So how do you fathom that? Is the public justified to be losing trust in CAs? And what is CA Connect doing to assure the public that, listen, what we are producing, the chartered accountants that have done time at CA Connect are different ethically and technically?
Jeez, that's a good question. And I think there's about 10 questions laid in there, Nico. But I'm trying to start at the beginning. I think from a profession perspective, again, I think we've got to look systematically at this thing and are we setting the profession up for success? Because, I mean, again, I think you'll agree with me that within any broad group of people, if you get kind of 10,000 people together, you're going to get some good ones and you're going to get some bad ones. And so, but I'm certainly not, I mean, I definitely don't want to make excuses, but I mean, of course, as I say, like within a member body like SAICA, no matter how much you teach ethics or ingrain ethics, I think you're just going to get some some fraught apples that just don't do this well. But that said, we need to set the profession up for success, because even though, I don't know, kind of maybe you get 10 or 20 or 100 bad ones, you've got to make sure that 99% of the other ones are
good ones.
And what are the systematic things we're doing to set this up for success? And I think psychers, unfortunately, it's been reactionary in terms of what they've done. I think it's commendable that they have reacted and they are taking active steps to develop this. I think it probably would ideally have come kind of 5-10 years earlier, but they've done a complete restructuring of their board and their processes, and I think those things are over time going to get things kind of back on track. And I mean, those are the type of systematic things that kind of improve things over time. They're putting a lot of effort into, I don't know, ethics awareness, code of professional conduct, and all the things around that. NOCLAR. Again, everyone kind of rolls their eyes when you hear these things, because like, oh well, we're doing this and it's kind of this red tape and that red tape. But I suppose when you're playing the long game, education is in a lot of ways the solution, and we kind of referred to it at the beginning with kind of education in a lot of ways being the solution to a lot of the country's problems. I think psych has got to do the same thing, that education around ethics, and it filters down into the educational providers around that. And again, it's tricky because you're playing the long game. In the short term, you don't see an impact. You're still going to see the scandals, and kind of you're going to put, like, I don't know, psych is going to put massive efforts and infrastructure into restructuring their boards and education into ethics and all that kind of thing. And kind of a year later, there's going to be another one. But when you're playing the long game, these things only resolve in kind of 10, 15 years. And I think that's the problem of systematic issues over the prior years, because if you got them wrong systematically over the last 20 years, then obviously systematically it's going to take a period to get right. And And again, you balance these things between, you also don't want to just over-regulate. I mean, there's big arguments which to an extent I believe in, that you can't teach ethics. Ethics in a lot of ways is a heart issue. And so you can almost provide a framework to ethics, and you can almost bring issues to the attention of people and give them frameworks to solve these things. But I don't know, it's hard to educate. I mean, it's hard to educate someone around, if you had an audit company and an audit partner says to you, do this. Just almost the culture in society, if you listen to authority, generally you're going to do it. A lot of the problem we have with ethics is that students don't even realize, or recent graduates don't even realize it's an ethical thing. They say, oh, an audit partner tells me to do this. I don't want to go against the rules, and I'm going to do this. And then meanwhile, it comes up 2 years later that they were being told to be fraudulent, or told to turn a blind eye to an audit issue, but they were just doing what they were told. And so these are the things we need to do. And as I say, we can't just have rules for these things. I think what we need to do is we need to create conversations around these things, to say, do you realize that if an audit partner tells you to do something, that might be an ethical issue, and we can't just blindly accept that? And do you know, if a client, I don't know, offered you cash, and there's a guy who, I don't know, he's the only one in his family who's got a university degree, and he's the only one in his family who's got a car, and suddenly a client offers you, here's, I don't know, 100,000 rand to do something. 9 times out of 10, the guy does that.
You're going to do it.
Like, whoa, that's a lot of money. Like until we actually in that position, like, how do we know? And I think that's almost our philosophy, I guess, because then I'm still answering your question in all your 10 pieces that you asked me, Nico, with almost like how at Milpark and CA Connect do we actually make sure students are prepared for this. I think the key is around conversations, because students and people in society are generally quite good at learning rules. But I think on top of the rules, or the rules on their own aren't good enough. What we have to get to is, once we know the rules, to overlay onto that a conversation about real things. And what if this, what if that? And do you know that this may be an ethical issue? Do you know? And almost imagine these scenarios, imagine ourselves in these things. Like, geez, man, if I was offered 100,000 rand, 1 million, 10 million rand for something, how would I respond to that? And sometimes just to say, guys, I'm going to be honest with you, I'd probably take the 10 million and then and reflect on that. And what does that say about us? Like I don't like, for example, I don't know, the question papers that say, you offer 10 million rand, what do you do? And then it's easy to answer the question. So I do not take the 10 million rand. That would be unethical. Everyone knows that. But we've got to take it a step further to be like, whoa, like, what does that really mean? And when we start grappling with the real issue, like, how do I overlay this into my economic context, into my cultural context, into my understanding of authority and where I stand relative to authority and in the world? Like, those are the tough questions. And those aren't easy answers. As I said, that's why we have to have conversations. The most important thing when we become professionals is we must have those conversations. We must grapple with these issues because they're not just a 1 and a 0. Yeah. There's gray, and we've got to figure out. And often knowing the correct answer isn't necessarily the same as doing the correct thing. And those, I guess, are the tough parts. And I think that's where the Milparks guys will do well, because I think they know that. Where another institution, students might be able to tell you what the right answer is. I feel, and I mean, this is where we're going to have to see it, and this will be a test of time, or I believe that in time the Milpark CA Connect students, on the whole, systematically, will tend more to doing the right things than the other institutions, because we've had good conversations, I hope.
No, fantastic, Gareth. One more question on broader education before we get to your journey, your personal entrepreneurial journey and professional journey. COVID-19, it's wreaked havoc not only in the financial system, but in every single part of the economy. Education hasn't been left out of that crisis. We've seen lockdown. We've seen students who were told to go home. Slowly but surely, they're slowly coming back. What is your view on that? And how do you think COVID-19 going forward has fundamentally affected education?
Jeez, Nico, again, your big question. It's such a good question. And I think the answer is like everything, it's fundamentally disrupted it. I guess what it brings to the fore is, why didn't we do better before? And I'm worried that we could have done stuff better before, and in a lot of ways we were scared to. One of my favorite kind of quotes or objectives of education is what we've got to achieve with education with students is confidence in their ability to learn and not being afraid of change. And I'll tell you why that's so important, because if we can develop students' confidence in their ability to learn, so in other words, learning to learn, and not being afraid of change, then we can dive into figuring things out. And I think what COVID-19 has brought to the fore is that there were always really better, significantly better ways of doing things. Like if we take it for example, in education, I sit, for example, kind of on every 2 or 3 weeks, I sit in a SAICA head of department meeting where we have a Zoom or a Teams meeting with all the heads of departments around the country. And what do the heads of department from around the country say? They say, man, we're doing cool stuff with education that we should have been doing for the last 20, 30 years. And we're like, well, nothing really fundamentally in technology has changed. All that's changed is we're now under pressure.
Now we have
COVID-19 to do things differently. Suddenly the students are remotely based. We're forced to rethink these, but it's frustrating that we didn't do that before. And I think as lecturers, I think, are as scared as students in their kind of in terms of being not being confident in their ability. No, well, you've got to. I fundamentally believe that oftentimes lecturers are so quick to pass the blame to students, say, "Oh, students this," and "Oh, students this," and students aren't confident, as I say, like aren't confident in their ability to learn. They're afraid of change, that kind of thing. But often, if you look back on the lecturers, the students are just a reflection of the lecturers. So if and I say this a lot in the SAICA meetings, and I'm not always popular about this, but if we've got a problem with the students, we've got to look at ourselves, because the students are oftentimes a reflection of ourselves. And if as lecturers we can be excellent role models and we can demonstrate appropriate behaviors, I think in a lot of ways students are gregarious and students are passionate and students do things well. And it's again why when starting CA Connect, we were like, it's so unacceptable that the framework for education is not assisting these students, because students are passionate. Students want to do well. They will kill themselves to get to their goals. And I see it every day. It's one of the things I love about my job. But there's such a massive responsibility on every institution and every person who's putting their hand up and saying, I'll provide education, because they are role models and they're providing a road for the students. And we've got to get that right. And I've kind of gone a bit off track on your COVID-19 question, but I think in a lot of ways, what we're going to see when we reflect on COVID-19 in kind of 5-10 years, I think we're going to see it as a catalyst.
Yeah.
I think we're going to emerge from it. I think we're going to be stronger. I think we're going to be better, all the stuff that leaders say. But I think why it's important, as tragic as it is, and I'm certainly not discounting the tragedy, because it's certainly tragic, but it's definitely also going to catalyze massive change, massive reflection on why we weren't doing better, and it's going to force us into being leaner and meaner and better, and that's positive.
Yeah.
So I hope in amongst all the tragedy that we get those outcomes too.
No, and I remember someone said that we can't let a good crisis go to waste. Gareth, thank you so much for your candidness so far. We really appreciate it. We just want to switch gears a bit. We've spoken about the broader education system and how COVID-19 has kind of like reworked its way into the economy. But I'd like to speak about Gareth the man and your journey. And word on the street is that you actually wanted to study drama. How did that work out? What happened there?
I did indeed. Well, I tell everyone, I guess lecturers to some extent, if they want to stand up in front of a group of people, then in some way they're performers. So I don't see it too dissimilar to just I suppose being a performer. And you're right, I did want to study drama. I think I was the only guy in my class in matric who I did ad maths as a subject, and I did drama. So I've always kind of seemed to have these kind of, I don't know, typically mutually exclusive things that I did. I liked to kind of just do a bit of everything. I liked being in front of people. I liked my numbers. I don't know, it worked for me. I liked my poetry. I kind of would have been happy being a poet as well. So I had pretty divergent interests. So when I told my parents I wanted to do drama, they were like, no, that's not going to happen. And they were paying for my university fees. So that was fair enough. But I suppose that's where kind of I found the lecturing thing. I think as many people choose it, it's in a lot of ways not because they necessarily want to be an accountant. Look at you got your own podcast. And you're doing cool things and you're entrepreneur and all that things. And I think, as I say, it's a door opener. And for me, it opened doors into lecturing. I think I enjoy the numbers, but in terms of being a general financial manager, do I want to do that? No. So I think that's where it was kind of the lecturing, the education, combined with a bit of numbers and a bit of accounting. And I think I probably teach financial reporting a bit differently to typical financial reporting lecturers. I like the judgment aspects. I like the high level discussion of the financial reporting. You know me, and you've been subject to a few of my papers. I think the higher up you get in financial reporting, the more it becomes almost like more an art than a science. So I think that's where it all comes in. I really see kind of lecturing and financial reporting and education as kind of a great hybrid of kind of art mixed with science, mixed with judgment, mixed with professional work, and it works for me. So I mean, I wake up every morning pretty happy with what I do, and I think I'm glad that I did drama in matric. I'm glad that I was Agamemnon, the Greek god, in my high school production, and I think it served me well. So I appreciate it. And I think and I hope the students benefit from that aspect as well.
From the drama. Yeah, no, we definitely see the drama in the test papers. We see it everywhere. But anyway, Gareth, so fast forwarding a little bit from the drama situation, you ended up going to do a commerce degree at UCT, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
Yes, and then you did that.
Business science at UCT.
Yes, you did did business science, and then you went via the accounting route, and then after that, you went to go to an audit firm, one of the top 4 firms. How was your experience there? Did you enjoy the actual work of audit? Did you enjoy your clients? What was the best thing about joining a top 4 audit firm? And what was the worst thing about joining a top 4 audit firm?
Yeah, so to rewind a little bit, I started business science. I actually started marketing, the marketing stream of business science, and I did that for a year and a half. And then only after that did I switch over to accounting, when I almost saw how accounting could open doors. And then I signed with PwC. PwC gave me a bursary. That was like literally the only reason I signed with PwC, because again, my parents were like, well, they're giving you money, so surely you're going to take the money. And so I was like, okay, show me where to sign. Which unfortunately, I'd love to sit here and say it was kind of this systematic, scientifically planned route that it was, but as I said, at the end of the day, PwC gave me a bursary, and that was a great help, as I suppose it would be for a lot of people. I was lucky because PwC allowed me to do my first year of my training contract at UCT, so I did that as an academic article clerk, which I think gave me a huge insight into kind of the world of education and just what it would be like to be a lecturer. And I got to know the UCT lecturers well. I got to understand the system, and it really, I guess, it cemented a lot of the things I hoped about education and into something that I thought would be good to pursue as a career. I also, during academic articles, two of the guys I did academic articles with, Andrew and Ron, are both CA Connect founders with me. So I got to meet them, and we became really good friends. Andrew, for example, was a groomsman at my wedding. So we really good friends, and I wouldn't swap that year for anything. So I did that first year of articles in Cape Town, and then went to Joburg to PwC and did my articles there. I mean, I can't say I loved auditing, but I think I'm glad I did it. It gave me insight into the world that I didn't have, and I think it's an important step. I can certainly see why the part of any CA's requirements to become a CA is doing your articles. I mean, I think it's really, really important. The work might not be amazing, but it gives you insight into different businesses. It gives you diversity of experience. It gives you insight into working as a team. It really, and that, I suppose, is what you've got to make the most of. Is that it might not be the best work, but you can still make the most of it, and you can still learn a heck of a lot. And so I'm glad for those 2 years. In actual fact, what I spent those 2 years doing was developing relationships within PwC to get me out of doing audits. So I enjoyed technical accounting. So I got to know all the technical accounting partners at PwC, and I chatted to them, and I kind of made arrangements with them. So actually, my second year at PwC, which was my third year of articles, I spent basically 6 months in the technical audit division at PwC. So to be honest, don't tell anyone this, but I've only actually done 1 year of auditing, actual auditing. So I should probably not be an auditing lecturer. Or I not be audit. I don't plan on signing off any audits. But then the final 6 months of my articles, I actually got seconded to SAICA to write a book that they needed, which actually then progressed into CA Connect. I think it's interesting in like I've done, as I said, I've done very little auditing, and I've really worked hard, I guess, in the different places I've been to get to know the people I need to get to know in order to pursue the things I want to pursue. And it's interesting because, I mean, the rules obviously apply to everyone, but I don't know, they seem less strict on people who they know and they like. And so I suppose that's an important part of business, not to, I guess, look for favors, but I think you've got to get to know the people you work with and the decision makers and form strong relationships with them, because a lot of doors open up when you know the people in charge and you know the decision makers. And I always use that to kind of open doors to where I wanted to be, both in education and in technical accounting. And I think that they're relationships you carry throughout your career. I'm still in touch with a lot of the technical accountants I worked with at PwC and at UWC. I sit on a number of boards and committees with them, and a lot of these niche industries are small. So you get to know a few of the people, and then kind of everyone, and those are important relationships to carry in winding your career and taking the path that you wanted to take.
Yeah. Gareth, thank you so much. Two more things I'd like us to touch on before we wrap it up. The first one is faith. You are, it's not secret, you even put it on your Twitter page that you're a Christian. I would like you to speak a little bit about that. How has your faith played a role in your makeup? not only as a husband and as a father, but as a lecturer, as well as a CEO and a founder of a fledgling firm. How has faith played a role in all of that?
Yeah, it's something I think I don't speak enough about, and I probably don't evangelize enough about it. And it's literally the cornerstone of my life. I think as you say, I'm a Christian, and that literally forms the basis of everything I am and all the decisions I make. And yeah, I mean, it's the foundation of everything. I guess the dangerous thing with if we don't have a faith is then we need to be very clear in our life about what informs our decisions. Because as people, as humans, we're very good at justifying whatever we want to justify. And the way I justify my decisions in my life is according to my faith and according to my Christianity. And I look to kind of the Jesus as a way to guide my path. And I think, and that's why from in accounting, I love the framework, because I think it's the framework kind of sets out the principles for what we do. And I think we all need a framework to our life. We need to know how and what we do and why we do it. And that's almost the foundation for my marriage. It's the foundation for my kids. It's the foundation for my teaching, for my professional being. And it's something I think everything needs to come back to, because otherwise I don't always know why we do what we do. It gives me purpose and it gives me meaning, and as we make decisions in life, it informs that. So it really is it is everything. I grapple with the idea of almost like how I bring that into my education and my teaching, because I love speaking about it, but I also don't want to be this evangelist who's kind of spouting all the stuff that no one wants to hear. I'm conscious of that, and then I think you can turn people off even more of kind of the Christian way of life if you kind of spout it uninvited. So I'm always conscious to play that line. But when invited, like you're inviting me to talk about it now,
of course,
I love God, I love Jesus, and it guides my life. And I would never have it any other way. And
fantastic, Gareth.
It's key.
No, fantastic, Gareth. Gareth, last year, I think it was around about April, I was going to Soweto with my mom, and I was listening to famous business shows around about 6:00. And I think last year or the year before that, I can't quite remember. But then I hear the announcement that Advotech has bought Monash. Now, that time, I know you and your team were still at Monash. Were you as surprised as we were? Or I'm sure the students were surprised. Was the faculty surprised? Or was it something that you guys already knew that it was coming, hence you kind of planned the move to Mill Park? Or was it just something that you had to adapt quickly?
I think that the sale of Monash had been bubbling under for a while. I think Monash Australia was looking to divest of Monash, so we had heard rumblings about it, not in the detail, but it wasn't completely news. I think the reason why we got away from Monash was not necessarily because of Advotech or anything like that. I think we had different strategic objectives to Monash. I think Monash was a contact institution, and I think the lines they're going down with Advotech and IIE is around boutique contact education, which is not what we were looking to do. We were looking to bring education to students who were studying, and it was a very different strategic outlook. So that was the reason, I think, for almost the divergence of CA Connect and Monash. And that was why we found an excellent home with Millpark, because I think Millpark was a distance education provider, very strong in the online space, because I think distance education and online education are two different things in a lot of ways. And that's where we really found a home with Millpark that we couldn't have found with Monash, because Monash was kind of pushing the kind of campus-based education, and we saw a much bigger and broader mandate that we were looking to. As I say, from kind of 10 years ago, when we started CA Connect, we wanted access and to help the guys who weren't able to study on a full-time basis.
No, fantastic. To finish it off, we're gonna finish it off with lightning round questions. Ask a few questions. The first answer that comes to your mind, Gareth, you're not gonna have a long time to think about it. So the first things first. Favorite food?
Oh man, burgers, boring.
Very boring. You're so right. if you had a superpower, you had a choice between flying and being invisible. Which one would you pick and why?
No, why can't I teleport?
Oh, teleport. Oh, teleport. Tell me, why would you teleport?
This is something I talk about a lot with my 5-year-old son. So I've thought through this. I know my superpower. Although I do tell my son that his superpower is kindness. I've got to bring in the teaching there, you know.
Yes. Oh no, fantastic. Favorite holiday destination? Favorite holiday destination locally?
Locally, oh man, I love Claremont in Cape Town. Claremont, Hermanus, Ornrus, that kind of area, kind of those wine routes, amazing.
Johannesburg or Cape Town?
Oh, Cape Town, man. I grew up in Joburg and now I'm in Cape Town, and the choice was right.
Thank you so much, Gareth. We really appreciate your time and your presence here at the Economites. I know I can speak for myself, and that the way that you carried yourself, even as not only as my lecturer, but seeing you as a business person from the outside, I think the way that you're carrying yourself is very, very good. You're an example to many, you're an example to me. I hope this is not the last time that I get to speak to you. And once again, we just want to appreciate your time on the Economites.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me. It was cool to chat.
Thank you so much, Gareth. Well, there you have it. This has been a candid conversation on a variety of critical issues. What I especially liked about this convo is that Gareth is not only a theoretical academic, but is also a practical entrepreneur. And many a times it's quite difficult to balance the two, but he does that pretty well. No doubt in my mind that he's come a long way, but I'm convinced him and his team are not done yet. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it, and may you have a fantastic day.